In today's program, I interview Peter Kling. Peter Kling is considered to be the Einstein of biblical prophecy and uses the study of hermeneutics to decipher the codes within the Bible. To learn more about Peter Kling, visit peterkling.com. Peter Kling is one of the most popular guests on the program, and today we continue the conversation with the Mastermind of the Donald Trump prophecy of 2017. Please like the video. If you have something to say, make a comment in the comment section below. Also, if you have a question for Peter, put it in the comment section and we may get to it in a future episode. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and above all, enjoy the program. Peter Kling, welcome back to the program.
Russell, thank you very much for having me back. I enjoy being a guest on your show.
Peter, I can only sympathize because I'm a Canadian. What is it like now living in the United States with Trump as president, all the animosity towards Donald Trump? What's it like?
Well, I don't get directly involved in politics to begin with. I'm basically an observer of this situation here.
You don't get into arguments at the convenience store?
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Well, first of all, I don't get out much to begin with. But I look at this, and I've done this with every presidential election that I can remember. And really, the only presidential election which affected me directly was Nixon, because he ended the draft. I was 18, senior in high school, and Vietnam was going on, was de-escalating, but they still had the draft, and they had the draft lottery. My number was 26 that year. So that's the only president that has really affected me directly. But with this chaos that we're seeing over Trump, this is almost mind-boggling in some aspects, and it's quite disconcerting because this is unprecedented. We've never seen this. Even after Obama was elected for the second time, all those people who didn't want Obama to have two terms, you didn't see any rioting in the streets. You didn't see any cars being burned, windows being smashed, or protests. It's like, okay, well, he's the president. But with this situation, it's totally opposite. And the only thing that you can tie this together, when we look at this whole situation, it's a division of the country. We have literally approached civil war, but only one side's fighting. So which side is fighting? It's not, you can't say it's the Democratic side, because it's really not. It's globalist-inspired morons that are actually taking this fight to the street. And I use that term specifically because this is what happens. And this is actually by design. The globalists use mob mentality. You know what happens to the IQ of the smartest person in that mob? It drops. It drops right down to the lowest common denominator of the mob. And a mob can be, I don't care how intelligent you are, what your IQ is, how smart you are, what your life experience is. If you're in the middle of a mob and you are with that mob, you are now in line with mob mentality, and all your intelligence has just gone out the window.
Yeah, because there's no ownership for your actions anymore.
Exactly. And so what is going on here? And I haven't seen the payroll sheets. I haven't seen the checks written. I haven't seen what I would need as pure evidence. But all indications are that there are ties back to George Soros, who we know has been influencing governments for years. And so we've come to a point in our own history here as a country. Are we going to let outside forces destroy the country in which we live? And I think that's the general question that Mid-America has asked. Not my question, but that's the general question that Mid-America has raised up. And then all of a sudden Trump, who's not a politician but a businessman, says, I'm going to run for president. And when he threw his hat in the ring, I said, yep, that's going to be our next president. Why? Because I had such allegiance to Trump? No. I said Obama was going to be president back in 2007 when he first announced that he was going to run for office. And the reason being is that he was most likely to bring forth biblical prophecy. And the same thing is true with Trump. When Trump ran for president, the presidents are catalysts. That's really all they are. And we can see what happened through the Obama administration, where we've got a lot of people that just don't take responsibility for themselves. And what a lot of people, and something I even wrote in Letters to Earth regarding the president, is that people, I quoted Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter endorsed Obama before the election, and he said, Barack Obama is the greatest hope for peace in the Middle East that we have. But what's the record? The record under Obama shows that under his administration, a bomb was dropped in the Middle East every 20 minutes. What kind of peace was that? Also, race relations have deteriorated in the United States, and this is what I find unique. As an American white male, for the first time in my life, I now feel discrimination. I really do. I knew it was there before. I just didn't pay any attention to it. But now I feel discrimination against white American males. What? Are you serious?
Yeah, I feel the same way. I bet that it was impossible to insult you before, being a white person, but all of a sudden, in the last while, just like myself, you're starting to notice we're the minority.
We're only the minority because we have the backbone.
That's not even it. We're being oppressed.
Yes, I agree. And this was something that, this has to be 15 years ago. I was looking into, maybe even longer, I was looking into government grant programs. And the white American male has the least amount of government subsidized business programs set up. The most, if you want money to start up a business, and you are a woman of ethnicity, and you are disabled in some form or fashion, you have the greatest chances of having a government grant so you can start your own business. They were all over the place at the time. White American males. And when I saw that, I thought, well, that's discrimination, isn't it? You have to excuse my puppy for howling here. Something's got him upset. But that's discrimination. And it was the same thing with colleges. When colleges had to have quotas of black people coming in, they couldn't pass the entrance exam. But if you were a white person, could pass the entrance exam, and the college didn't meet their quota of ethnicity, then you were kind of stuck here, out of the question, because maybe you didn't score high enough, and the lowest 10% of white Americans that applied to this college were disqualified because people of ethnicity who didn't even qualify on the test took their place. So, that's reverse discrimination. Now, I'm not saying that people shouldn't be educated or have a chance to be educated. My personal opinion is that education should be free right on up to your bachelor's degree. Seriously. Because just look what the banksters have done to the last generation. They've enslaved. There's a push. All you kids got to go to college. Got to go to college. Got to go to college. Don't worry, the money's there. You can get student loans, and so you're paying off $100,000 in a student loan, including the interest, over the rest of your life. That's insane. And what we're finding now with the Trump administration is that, hey, we need workers. Your college degree ain't worth snot. And yet we still have, so let's look at what the colleges have turned out. They've turned out a whole new term for snowflake. Someone who can't stand up under a little intense heat. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing the next generation who have been totally controlled by artificial intelligence through their own smartphones. We have seen them dumbed down to the point where anytime you want to start a mob, just call a bunch of kids. Seriously, well, when I say kids, I mean, young adults, college-age students. They'll be happy to get into a mob and destroy whatever for whomever. All you got to do is tell them what to do, because they can't think for themselves. And that's what we've created, is a whole generation of people who can't think for themselves and are easily misled. And we have college professors that tell them how to think, And then, okay. There's a problem with academia. Academia is educated to the point of ignorance. What I mean by that statement is that these college professors and academics get so focused on their own agenda and their own little portion of the puzzle piece that they forget that everything else exists, and they become so egotistical that they implant that ego and that thinking into all of their students. And so we have a bunch of kids that don't even learn basket weaving and come out of college knowing nothing. Seriously. You've had to see, though, I guess Jay Leno made it famous, when he started interviewing people and asking them questions, Jay on the street or whatever it was called. Jaywalking, yeah, okay. It showed, and this was what, 20 years ago, and it was showing how the dumbing down of America. I worked for a company, hired a great gal. What a sweetheart she was. Good worker, excellent worker. Very conscientious. But as far as she had a Bachelor of Arts degree, and she couldn't answer historical questions that I learned in grade school, and I'm talking about 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. She had no idea. It was like, okay, when was the War of 1812 fought? What was the War of 1812? It's like asking somebody, what's the number for 911? And I don't know. I just asked her some very basic questions, things that, like I said, I learned she couldn't answer one of them, and yet she had a Bachelor of Arts degree. So what the heck did she learn in college? How did she get through college? With her lack of knowledge, I couldn't have gotten past the 8th grade. So what's going on here? It's the dumbing down of the general population.
What are your thoughts on diversity? Because when I think of the word diversity, I can't help but think it sounds a lot like division.
Well, yeah,
And what's the saying? A country divided against itself cannot stand.
But here's the way that business looks at it. This was a paradigm that came in through big business, and it was in order to get their personnel to be ethnically different. And I was working in corporate America during the time of diversification and globalization. And I had no, I'm not a racist of any sort. As a matter of fact, I was actually just thinking about this the other day. I've had several bosses throughout my life. Personally, I would prefer to work for a male boss. However, the best bosses that I had were black women. Seriously, the best bosses that I had were black women. They're friendly as anything, always happy, always help. They're very motherly, and very friendly, very easy to get along with. Don't piss them off. I don't know what to say. So, the white women that I worked for, they were backstabbing, really terrible people. They were. I don't have anything good to say. They were so involved in political catfights, and if you didn't support their agenda, that political catfight was taken out on you. And this is right in corporate America, within company politics. And so it's like, wow, the difference there was unbelievably dramatic. Now, I'm an American white male. Who would I prefer to work with? Out of both black women or white women? I'd rather work for a black woman, obviously. Never had any issues. White women? Oh my goodness. They drive you nuts. Now, is that prejudice? No, that's an observation. That's an observation. So, having a diverse workplace environment brings a lot of talent into a company. Having a diverse nation is not an issue. This country is made up of diverse people. Where the problem comes in is not in the diversity of where everyone comes from, but it is their refusal to abide by the laws of the United States of America. That's where the issue comes in. We have, everybody talks about this border between Mexico and the United States. There's people trying to get to the United States to have a better life. I don't blame them. I wouldn't leave the United States. If I did, I might go to Canada, but that's as far as I would go. And that's just essentially walking across the border somewhere in the woods. But, and where my preferred place to live is right next to Canada anyway. But I prefer to stay in the United States. I've been here all my life. I know the language. I know the people. I know where the safe places are, and I know where the dangerous places are. Why would I go to a country that I know next to nothing about because I didn't like who was president? You know, that's insane. We have people that have flocked in here. You've had every country from Europe has come here. You've got every nationality from around the world. There's never been an issue up until Islam. Now, are the people an issue? No. The religion is an issue. And so that's why, and the religion has become an issue in a country that guarantees freedom of religion. The problem is that the religion has been put above the law of the land. And when the people no longer follow the law of the land and demand that the law of the land be changed by their religious beliefs, I have an issue with that. I think everybody should. Because now, if their religious beliefs become the law of the land, what about my beliefs? What about your beliefs? What about my neighbor's beliefs? What about my community's beliefs? If they're all different. You see, so we respect the diversity. And that's good. But if we had to put up with Sharia law from coast to coast, could you imagine the uprising that would cause within America? You know, we're at this point where religion is dictating to government what they should do. And if you don't believe that, go look at the no-go zones, both in Europe and the United States. How do you have a whole group of people practicing one religion just take over a city? And then make it so dangerous for anybody else to enter that city unless you abide by their religious laws. You know, that's the mind-boggling part. And we're seeing one of the most fantastic. Here's the dumbing down of America. I love this gay pride parade with gays for Islam or gays against Islamophobia. Do you know what Sharia law demands be done with gays? They should be, or anybody who is not heterosexual. They should be executed, thrown off of a building. So wait a minute, you have these people that practice this particular lifestyle, and they want everybody not to be afraid of Islam. But if Islam takes over and they put into Sharia law, those people are dead. Does that make sense to you? You know, so it's that's where the stupidity of this country has gotten. And so the people are so easily maneuvered to rise up against a president who wants to return to a former paradigm. One where America first. Do you have a problem with Canada being first? You know, if you're living in Canada, you want Canada to take care of the people in Canada and not to bow down to world influences. So what's wrong with that in America? Why can't we take care of Americans first? Look at the homeless problem.
We have a question here from the audience. Early on, when they began comparing Donald Trump with Hitler, I thought, if they're lying about Trump this way, I have to question what the truth is about Hitler. Peter, what are your thoughts?
Hitler was loved by the people of Germany. We could talk about this in a whole episode, but in a nutshell, here's the situation. Both Hitler and Franklin Delano Roosevelt, come into power in 1933. This is right after the Great Depression. Only the Great Depression was worse in Germany. Germany had gone through virtually 15 years of depression by this time, almost that long, because they had to make reparations back to the countries that they destroyed during World War I. So Germany was basically the most depressed country in all of Europe at the time, Their money wasn't worth anything. And in 6 years after Hitler came into power, from 1933 to 1939, Hitler took Germany from being the most oppressed country to being a world power in 6 years. Germans were elated. Okay, what about the Jewish population? Well, there's a whole situation for another show there. The whole Holocaust wasn't caused by Germans. It was caused by the Zionist control of the Nazi regime. And people are saying, what? This connects with the Balfour Agreement and the first Congress of the first Congress of Zion, which was held in Basel, Switzerland, in 1897. They tried to hold it it was going to be held in Munich, Germany, but when the local Orthodox population found out that the plan for the first Congress was to move all Jews back to Palestine, or back to the Holy Land, they were in such an uproar that the Zionists were forced to move their Congress meeting to Basel, Switzerland. And people have no comprehension of this, that the whole purpose of the whole reason that we had the Holocaust was to drive Jews to the Middle East. Holocaust means whole burnt offering to God. So you can't, now I'm not going to say Hitler was some kind of a great guy, but let's go back to the original question. What's the comparison? In order for Hitler to do what he did, he had to eliminate, or he was forced to take out the Jewish population out of business. The reason why is, and my family was in Germany. My grandfather went back to visit, and he said, what happened to the baker in town? And his brother said, well, another baker came into town. He was Jewish. The distributor for the flour and sugar was Jewish. And so he got the goods he got it at cost. He didn't have to pay anything extra. The Jew wasn't making a profit on him, the supplier. He said, but our baker was, he was a Gentile, and he had to pay. He wasn't getting the baked goods for the same cost, and he was paying more, so he had to charge more. And they were both equally good bakers, and the guy who had to charge more got put out of business. And what was happening was that once a town got a Jewish banker, the whole town went Jewish. So the same thing that was happening, or that's happening now in Europe with Islam, with these safe zones, and here too within the United States, was happening in Germany back after the First World, well, prior to the First World War, but certainly after the First World War, because that money influence was being, pumped in to take over from the Zionist end to gain control of Germany. But here's the thing with Trump. Trump wants to round up all the illegal alien felons. Now we're not talking about families that cross the border from Mexico trying to make a better life for themselves. But here's the situation. If we just look at the gang members, or the gangs that are in the United States, the most notorious of them being MS-13, which is actually a global gang. They're just not here in the United States. They are all over. They are a drug cartel rebel group that's aligned themselves with Hamas. Their members are illegal aliens. They're felons. They are trafficking in drugs. They are trafficking in prostitution and human trafficking. All of this, and they are not U.S. citizens. And it's believed that 50% of the gang members in the United States are illegal aliens. So let me understand this. You want to leave this criminal element in the United States and not arrest them and get their butts in prison, in jail, or out of the country? Are you insane? The people who are responsible for half the drugs coming into this country and the distribution of those drugs, you don't want to take out of business. The people who are engaging in prostitution and human trafficking, you don't want to take out of business. Seriously? Seriously? But now let's look at the logistics of this. We're talking about 2 million people here. How do you go and arrest 2 million people in sanctuary cities that are committing these felonies? How do you do it? Logistically. How do you do it? Do you employ local police to go in? Police don't want to go in these areas. They got family. I was listening. This was right around Christmas time, and somebody I have to believe was a policeman that actually did this, because you could see their spot light outside the car. But they were just sitting on a Chicago streets outside of Chicago, and they took their iPhone and they put it on record, so they were recording what was going on. You could hear the sounds, and they were just panning. There's nobody on the streets around, but in the distance you can hear gunfire going on, and it sounded like you were in the Middle East. Obviously different caliber guns, because you heard different barks from both rifles and pistols being used in this gun battle. Streets of Chicago during the night. Let's leave these people there. They have every right. They're looking for sanctuary, and we're a sanctuary city. Why wouldn't the police even go look to see where the gunfight was coming from? Because they got kids. They got wives. They got families. They're not going to get in the middle of a street firefight. So we have to. So in order to deal with this situation, guess who you're going to have to bring in? The military. And so what are they going to do? Round them up? Or you have to bring in special units to deal with them. Round them up. Do door-to-door searches. Every place has got to be looked into, cleaned out, and the people in there charged and arrested, or vetted for who they actually are, and then charged or arrested. And it doesn't make any difference whether they've got any violation of the law. But you would have to do it to clean it up. You have to do it house by house. We saw the same thing going on in the Boston bombing, where we had special SWAT teams going house to house looking for an 18-year-old kid that was shot. Illegal searches. Illegal searches, not a warrant. How could they possibly do such a thing? Total violation of our rights. Illegal search. It was right against the Constitution. So how does the government carry this out? Hey, that was a practice drill for what's going to be coming up. And so when Trump wants to do this, he has to engage a special force to go round up all these people. We're talking 2 million people minimum. And that's just the gang members. And how do you process those people? Where do you detain them at? FEMA camps? Yeah. So essentially, Trump is going to wind up doing the same thing that Hitler did, just because of the logistics of the situation. I'm not saying he's going to go to war with the rest of the world, but we're in for some world changes. But yes, I would see Trump as very Hitler-esque. Not that he's got some evil agenda, but in the job that he has promised to do. There's no other way around it. He's going to have to round people up, and move them on mass transit somehow to put them into detention centers so that they can be held and either sent out of the country or placed into permanent confinement for their crimes. And you can be sure that they're not going to have much of a fair trial once they're found out to be illegal members of or illegal aliens and members of gangs. So, do you want to live with the criminal element, or do you want to round them up and get rid of them? It's that simple. And the logistical task of rounding up 2 million people at least 2 million people across the United States, you can't put them in the prison system. Prison system's already overcrowded. So we got FEMA camps, interestingly enough, built right around sanctuary cities. Go look at the maps.
Another question from the audience here. Okay, I'm going to say it. I see Donald Trump doing things at record speed that seem wonderful for America, like he's in some huge rush. I don't want to believe this, but could it be true that he is a false prophet? For false messiahs and false prophets will appear and perform great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect.
No, I wouldn't take him as a false prophet. And, now he's a politician. Before that, he was a businessman. A lot of times people will make this correlation. The false prophets would be more from a religious aspect, because the prophets were aligned with God, and the prophets prophesied to the kings and to the people. So the king wouldn't necessarily be the prophet. You know, in the case of the prophet Samuel, one of my favorite, actually I like them all, but there was Samuel, and he was prophet to two kings, King Saul and King David. So he told the kings what to do. So the prophets would come out of Christendom, or out of Islam, or out of a religious, entity. And you could say certainly Muhammad was a false prophet. I mean, he built a religion based on hate and murder, as opposed to one being based in love. So, you go and you look at what Jesus' words were when he was asked what the greatest commandment was. He said, the greatest commandment is this: you must love Yahweh your God with your whole heart, soul, and mind, and you must love your neighbor as you do yourself. Nowhere does Jesus condone war on a country-to-country basis. As a matter of fact, when the Jews wanted to make him king, he refused. And a week later, he rode into Jerusalem on a young donkey colt, on an ass, and the crowds waved palm branches, and they wanted to make him king because they loved him so much. A week later, he found himself impaled and put to death as the Passover lamb. So and before Pilate, when Pilate asked him, he said, are you king? And he said, well, you yourself have said I am king. But he also said, my kingdom is no part of this world. So there's no condoning of murder, of violence, of any sort. Even when Jesus said, sell your outer garment and buy a sword, it wasn't to go to war, because he said after that, those who live by the sword shall die by the sword. But the reason for buying a sword or having a gun was because I will not be here to protect you. So you have to protect yourself. That's when, after the Passover meal or the memorial meal with his 12 apostles before they went out to the Garden of Gethsemane, those were Jesus's words. Does anyone among you have a sword? And there were two. And he said, well, if you don't have a sword, sell your outer garment or sell your coat and go buy one. But they had two, and that was enough, Jesus said. So, it comes down to a matter of love, and love puts us in a vibration that takes us out of a fight and flight syndrome where beta is, and that's where we are today, all stuck in beta. The earth is stuck in beta, which is quite incredible. That's one of the reasons that people are under so much stress. Ask your audience how many of them can sleep well at night. People's sleep patterns around the world have been disturbed at an alarming rate. They can't sleep at night, so they wake up tired and stressed in the morning before they even go off to start their day. And it's because the Schumann resonance has gone from 7.83 hertz, which is, guess what, where we sleep at. When our brains vibrate at 7.83 hertz, we're in theta and we're asleep. Now the earth is vibrating between 13 and 35 hertz. That's the reactionary state of of beta, and that's where the flight or fight response is. At 35 hertz, if our brain is cycling at 35 hertz per second, we're fighting for our lives. And that's where they've measured the earth. 10 days ago, the earth was vibrating at 35 hertz for 2 days. So we're under a lot of stress here. Did I answer that question for you? I don't know if I totally did, but I think I did. Trump, not false prophet. Trump's just a politician. He's the king.
Another audience member asks, can you tell me why Donald Trump has surrounded himself by Ashkenazi Jews, and if so, why?
The United States of America is run by two different groups, Zionists and Jesuits. Zionists and Jesuits have been controlling the banking system since the days of the Knights Templar. It's the Zionists and Jesuits make up the globalists that are trying to control or turn the earth into a one world government. And what we have right now is that the Zionists are trying to kick the. Let me digress here for a second. When Pope Francis came into office, he was number one an illegal pope because he's a Jesuit. Went totally against Catholic law. So now we have a man of lawlessness at the helm, which is also a prophecy. This man of lawlessness must be exposed, and that might happen through Pizzagate. We'll find out where that goes. But the Pope, the first thing that he really publicly did was attack the banking system. He attacked it in May, and he attacked it again in September of 2013. In 2013, he said, "You have made God your money." He said, "In God we trust should not be on money because you have made God your money. I have made money your God." And so there was a Jesuit attack against the Zionist end of the banking system, because we know that the Federal Reserve is mostly, and the central banking system is made up of the Rothschild cabal. Mostly. So you have the two main banking forces on the planet fighting each other. Essentially, like the Knights Templar symbol, two riders on the same horse. Well, now one's trying to kick the other off the horse. And with the Vatican's having control of the White House for the past 36 years through the Knights of Malta, Reagan, Bush Sr., Clinton, Bush Jr. were all Knights of Malta. Obama has a letter of endorsement from the Knights of Malta. And as we saw in September of 2015, the Pope and Obama were quite friendly in the White House. As in fact, we saw this false Jesuit prophet standing in the White House, standing in the Capitol, standing in Independence Square, all of America's holy places. America, the land that separated church and state, now had the head of religion standing in its holy places. The same thing that happened when Rome attacked Jerusalem in 67 CE. They had the whole city surrounded, and the army came up inside. They undermined the wall, came up inside the most holy of the temple. And Jesus' prophecy that he quoted from Daniel in Matthew the 24th chapter, the 15th verse, was fulfilled. He said, "When you catch sight of the disgusting thing which causes desolation, standing in a place where it ought not," and in every Bible in parentheses it says, "Let the reader use discernment." It said, "Then let those leave Judea and begin fleeing to the mountains." We saw the representation of the disgusting thing standing in America's holy places in September of 2015. So there's the false prophet. But he's not the false prophet. There is a false prophet, but it's the man of lawlessness. It's not the false prophet from Revelation 13. The false prophet in Revelation 13 is a two-horned beast that appears to be a lamb. And anytime there's a beast involved, that is a governmental organization in biblical prophecy. Or anytime that a prophet talked about a beast of some sort, it was connected to a government or an empire. So if I said bear, what country would you think of? Bingo. If I said eagle, what country would you think of? America. So if I said lion, what country would you think of? England. So there's your beast. There's how that is supported, through beast-like organizations.
And if I said beaver, what would you think of?
Canada? I love the lesson.
Someone says here, Peter Kling, you should seek help from a psychiatrist.
Too late for
Do you get this sort of advice often, Peter?
too late for that. Let me say something. I've got a great education in psychiatry because I spent a lot of time with psychiatrists. And the first time I ever walked into a worker's office, one of these people that is supposed to help you through your mental issues, no joke. When I left, he was in the fetal position. Yes. When I left, he was in the fetal position. The only doctor of psychiatric medicine that I ever respected looked like he could be Einstein's brother. And he asked me the question, do you think you're superhuman? And the reason for the question was because I've faced death so many times. When you have escaped death 16 times, was dead once, let me tell you something. That puts a little stress on your life. When you have things that are taken away from you, I have lost everything 3 times. Why? Maybe it has something to do with what had happened when I was 18 and I was supposed to never see 19. Maybe it has something to do with the fact that my family was hunted down and murdered by the church for over 300 years because they were involved in the Reformation against the church. They were personal friends of Martin Luther, and they all condemned the church at the same time. I'm beyond help. But I'm a genius. And any genius will tell you that you are borderline on madness. So, yeah, forget psychiatry. They can't help me. I know more than they do. When you can put a psychologist in the fetal position, please, please. Anybody wants to debate me, I'll be happy to debate anybody on these subjects. You're going to lose because you're dealing with somebody who speaks the word of truth. So, yeah, been there, done that, been certified. Adios, so long, goodbye, let's move on.
Well, someone replies to that, if he was the Einstein of biblical prophecy, that's you,
Yep.
he would confess to the world that everyone cannot be saved according to Scripture.
That is correct. That is absolutely correct. And the reason for that is because they don't want to be. It's just that simple. When you look at the ruling class of this planet, who are they controlled by? And why do we go missing every year about 8 million children? They just vanish off the planet. And now we have the reports of Pizzagate. And now all this is starting to open up. And we know that they are sacrificing our children to whom? To extraterrestrial entities. The same thing that they did to the Anunnaki gods, to the Egyptian gods, to the Canaanite gods, to the Mesoamerican gods. They sacrificed people to these gods, and this became our religion. You think the Catholic Church teaches you Christianity? You're a fool. They are an extension of the Anunnaki religion that was established in Samaria 4,000 years ago. Every religion on this planet can track its roots right back to ancient Samaria and the Anunnaki. Oh, and guess what? They say the Anunnaki are back. Hey, happy Nibiru, what can I tell you? So yeah, because they practice what they do, they cannot be saved. They cannot be saved. Only those who seek the truth and then comprehend that this isn't some religious situation, but we're caught in the middle of an alien cosmos war. Think about it. The one thing that goes right through the Bible from Genesis to Revelation is extraterrestrial involvement in human affairs, right down to Jesus himself. Come on, where are you going to find perfect human DNA on planet Earth 2,000 years ago?
Comment. This is a comment. This fool has no concept of truth or reality. First, there's no such thing as this stupid Nibiru crap. Secondly, if he reads the scripture as he says he does, he would know in the very first page of Genesis it says, in plain English, God made the earth fixed and unmovable. Yet he prattles on about space, planets, nukes, none of which exist. He is yet another witch and spewer of lies. Beware of these internet prophets. Beware of Peter Kling.
I love it. I love it. This person's got to be a flat earther. They got to be a flat earther, because that's like the most ignorant statement that I've ever heard ever. Seriously. Everything that I've investigated through science. I'm not just some guy that came on the street yesterday and read and looked at a bunch of YouTube videos. My biblical education started before I was 5 years old, and it had nothing to do with religion. And at 9 years old, I started going down the scientific trail, studying not just chemistry, but every science that I can get my hands on to figure out how I was able to see a future event at 9 years old. I learned that science in 1978, as a matter of fact, May and June. I took a class that was developed based on Edgar Cayce's work. It was a scientific analysis and then application of Edgar Cayce's work, and it broke down how our minds actually work. But it wasn't until they discovered string theory in the late 1990s that it put everything together. And it enabled us to realize that there is a heaven and that there is an earth. It's called string theory. We live in a multiverse of 10 dimensions plus the dimension of time, and we are not dimensions 1, 2, and 3. We are dimensions 8, 9, and 10, which means we are all interdimensional, but we are put into a physical plane. And yes, the scriptures say the earth will be here to time indefinite. Now, there's one other thing. If you're going to read the Bible, read a Bible that has been updated with modern language. Oh, no, that means it's been changed. We can only read the King James Version. Let me tell you something. The King James Version is the most bastardized Bible on the planet. King James took the name of Yahweh or Jehovah out of the Bible over 7,000 times so he could turn around and use that edition as a Freemason Bible, because the Freemasons have their own God. And all you have to do to become a Freemason is to believe in God. They'll tell you who your God is when you hit the 33rd degree. So, like I said, that's like, I've studied this. I've studied the scripture. I've studied the sciences. And I've studied them for my whole entire life. And so now I bet this person who has made this comment doesn't have any kind of a degree past an associate's degree. And if they do, I bet you they can't answer simple questions that I learned that I had to answer back in grade school. And that's my comment to that. Thank you very much. I can defend myself pretty good. And you see...
Yeah, no, you want to defend yourself again? And someone else says, extremely new age, beware. Peter Kling is a wolf in sheep's clothing. And in fact, a lot of comments actually mentioning that you're new age.
I'm new age. You know why? Because they've never heard this before. I'm not new age. Have you ever heard me endorse any religion? New age or otherwise?
No, but I feel that you're leaning towards Jehovah's Witness.
A lot of people say that. I love this. I had 2 Jehovah's Witnesses come. I haven't seen a Jehovah's Witness I should say they haven't come. I don't know if I've actually passed them I have passed them, but it was about 15 years ago. I had 2 Jehovah's Witnesses come to my door, and I invited them in, and I told my son, "Go get my Bible." And we sat down. We had a very interesting conversation. I said, I understand the Bible a lot, like you folks do. Only I understand it a little bit differently. And I opened up my Bible to Genesis chapter 2, and I read verses 21 through 23, which says, God says it's not good for the man to be alone. I'm going to make a helper for him. And so he puts the man, he causes a sleep to come over the man. He opens up his flesh. He removes the rib tissue sample, closes the flesh, and proceeds to build a woman from the rib. And Adam says, at last, this is flesh of my flesh and bone of my bones. This one was taken from man. I shall call her woman. And then I looked at both of these fine gentlemen and I said, this is an account of genetic engineering. Their heads started to nod as their jaws hit the floor. They couldn't deny it. Now, when's the last time a Jehovah's Witness came to your door and read that scripture and said, hey, this is genetic engineering? You see, here's the situation. I don't think Jehovah's Witnesses are too far from being wrong. I don't think that they're 100% right. As a matter of fact, there's quite a few things I disagree with them on. But they are one of the few religions, and I don't like religion to begin with because it's all a sham, but they are one of the few religions, I should say, which are truly peaceful. They'll go to prison before they go to war. Think about it. Now, I'm not saying that there's not corruption. I'm not saying that they're not, hey, they're a corporation. Every religion that is noted, that is an official religion, is a corporation. And you know who the mother of all corporations is? The Vatican. So they're all an extension from the Vatican and have nothing to do with religion, including New Age religion. New Age religion is based on Gnosticism, which was the apostasy that took place, that the apostles talked about, the wolves coming in among sheep. That took place after the 1st century. Hence, all the Gnostic texts are from the 2nd and 3rd century that they find. And the Gnostic texts are basically what Islam is based on. And it was the Vatican who invented Islam, despite what anybody Islamic will tell you. Well, it wasn't the Vatican, it was the Holy See, or the Holy Roman Empire at that time, the Holy Roman Catholic Church, that created Islam. And they used the Gnostic texts to do it. So, you got to look at what's in the scriptures. And like I said, from Genesis to Revelation, it all involves alien involvement. What religion tells you that? You know, I don't know. Believe what you want. Wolf in sheep's clothing? I've never said anything that wasn't true. And if I did and found out that it wasn't true, I retracted it later on. But that's very rarely ever happened. You know, I'll tell you when that happens. It happens from time to time on Facebook posts because I haven't vetted something out properly. But when I wrote Letters to Earth, I looked for 3 different sources, not 3 people citing the same source, but 3 different sources. So believe what you want. The truth is out there. Here's some truth. I have people that attack me all the time. I went and checked Facebook security. I had 83 Facebook security people following me from around the world, including Japan and China, and a couple of places in the Middle East and Israel. I hope they learned something. Next question? Next comment?
I understand a lot of what he is saying, but I'm a little concerned about the cosmos comments. Disbelievers are talking about aliens a lot lately, and a false flag could be created to confuse people. Is he saying we are aliens?
If you go back and you look at the word cosmos and the definition, it was originally, I guess it came into fame by, I forgot the famous astronomer, Carl Sagan. He always talked about the cosmos. The cosmos is a word that is used to apply to encompass everything within the universe. Now, when Carl Sagan started using the word cosmos, they had no clue about string theory at the time. String theory, as I mentioned, was developed in the late 1990s. Mikio Kaku was part of the original team. Dr. Mikio Kaku, I had the pleasure of meeting and talking to, a very brilliant man. He read Letters to Earth. It was a year after our meeting when he told me that, I questioned Dr. Kaku, and I said, we know the Earth is a living organism. I said, could the universe, nay, the multiverse itself, be a living organism? Could it be God? And he said, well, I'm a theoretical physicist and philosophy's down the hall. A year later, he came up, if you go look at the timestamps on the posts of Facebook of the pictures of Dr. Kaku and myself, and then type in Mikio Kaku finds God, you'll find that Dr. Kaku came up with the theory for God a year after our conversation. So I guess he walked down to philosophy. Had a conversation with them or something, but he did it through tachyons, so what he named or called tachyons. So, but the cosmos would then encompass not just our 3 physical dimensions that we believe are the only ones that exist, but indeed all 10 dimensions, which are also biblical numbers. 10 is the number given for earthly completeness or human completeness. And as we know, 7 is God's number. We never understood 7. It's the 7 spatial planes that are within our 10 dimensions. And according to the mathematics, without those 7 spatial planes, our 3-dimensional planes could not exist. So those other seven-dimensional planes had to come into existence before our three-dimensional universe, as we know it, what we believe is all of creation, existed. However, if we use what is now fractal science and look how life progresses on Earth and how life just looks for places to live, and we're finding that wherever we're going, because of extremophiles, there's a fantastic chance, and we're always looking for life, some sort of life. So if we use the fractal science application, we could only come to the logical conclusion that life must exist in those other seven dimensions that we know nothing about or very little about, and it had to exist there before it existed here, because those other seven dimensions, part of the cosmos, are part of us. And if life didn't exist there, it wouldn't exist here. So now to get to aliens, extraterrestrials are the same as angels, fallen angels. We know by the scriptures there are at least 4 different types of angelic creatures, or interdimensional creatures is probably a better way to talk about them, because they can travel between the spatial planes and the physical planes. If we read the account in the book of Enoch and in Genesis, both were talked about, the true sons of God materialized or came to earth and had sex with human women. In the book of Enoch, it labels them this group as the Watchers. They were supposed to be watching over earth and the progression of the human population. And Enoch also said that these entities had the capability of transforming from the form of fire to the form of man and back to the form of fire. Now, don't think of fire as a literal sense. Think of it as more like an energy field. And don't we see energy orbs today? So we're dealing with the people that had no technology, and it was an energy that floated in air, or the form of fire. It was something like that. But they could change back and forth at will. And their original form seems to be the form of fire. So with all the hidden history that has been put there, we've got the gods, we've got the Anunnaki who started religion and government here with the Sumerian Empire. We've got children being sacrificed to something, some sort of entity. We have this whole record called the Bible, which deals with these same entities, demonic forces, fallen angels, fallen stars, depending on where you look. And we've got a record from both the Nazi government and from our own government by whistleblowers that we've built technology that was given to us by these entities. So, again, look at the scripture. The basic thing is that the earth is in the middle of a cosmic war. When we read Revelation 19, it says war breaks out where? Revelation 12. It says war breaks out in heaven. An interdimensional war. Wars between the interdimensionals. Wars between Michael and his angels and the great dragon and its angels. A reptilian force? A great dragon? And it says they did not prevail, and down to the earth that they were cast. And then there's a message for those on the earth. It says, woe, woe, woe for the earth, because the devil has been cast down to you, having great anger, knowing he has a short amount of time left. So there was a cosmic war first. Now we have all of this chaos. We've got aliens here. We've got UFOs. We've got things that we can't explain. People seeing a second sun in the sky. We've got secrecy that's built around that. We have astronomers that are being killed, have been killed. 2012, 26 astronomers, I think it was 26 or 28, 26 astronomers, I think is what it was, were mysteriously died in that year. 12 of them died in a cable car crash when a cable broke as they were going up to an observation, an observatory, on this cable car that they've used for who knows how long. Suddenly the cable breaks and they fall 2,000 feet to their death. Seriously. All in 1 year. Why were they offed? Why are some people allowed to talk about aliens and UFOs and secret space programs, and other people talk about similar things and they're killed? Or they commit suicide? You know, you have to look at the evidence there. And people go to a YouTube video, they form an opinion, and they say, that person's nuts. That person's crazy. The reason why they say that is because their own mind cannot comprehend the information which is being put out. And they are so closed-minded that they refuse to do the research. It's like having an argument with a flat earther. So, when you paint them into a corner, they say, well, it's all a conspiracy. It's all a lie. Now you got to battle with, how do you battle with ignorance? I don't even have to go, all I have to do if I want to prove the flat earth, that flat earth doesn't exist, is go to chemistry and physics. There's a little thing called electromagnetism. It happens at the atomic level. And it makes things that are alike want to come together, like matter. That's why in gaseous nebulas, you have all the gas coming around forming a spherical star. Not a flat star, a spherical star. And to think that the sun and moon are revolving around a flat, or over the top of a flat earth, that's exactly what the Anunnaki taught to keep people ignorant, and it's exactly what the Catholic Church taught right up until they couldn't be denied anymore by scientists. And so people want to go back to this ancient fallacy. Hey, enjoy. It's your religion. Anu, the king of the Anunnaki gods, was a god over a flat domed earth. What people fail to realize is that the things that were spoken to the ancients who recorded this stuff were put into a manner in which they could comprehend. Keep that in mind. The Bible, the last verses of the Bible were written 1900 years ago, but the first verses were written 3,500 years ago. What was the technology like then? Now, we know advanced technologies existed prior to the documentation of the scriptures or the documentation of what we get out of the Anunnaki texts, just based on the fossil record and the things that we find. Archaeologists dig up places that they date back 15,000 years. The Sphinx is a good example. The Sphinx, Dr. Robert Schoch, who is a geology professor at Boston University, he dated the Sphinx as being as old as 15,000 years based on vertical rain erosion that was found on the Sphinx itself. That vertical erosion was caused by rain, and you then had to go to a rainy season for Egypt, which was over 10,000 years ago, and let it rain enough to cause the erosion. Or it could have been eroded by the flood, but they don't take into consideration the flood. But either way, the Sphinx is dated at least pre-flood, at least older than 5,000 years ago. So people just refuse to look at what's there. It's not, you got to do the research. You got to study the people that are experts in their areas, but then combine it with the knowledge of others, because like I said earlier, academia has become ignorant. They focus on one thing, and it's like they have blinders on. They don't take anything else into consideration. It's the people who look at the results of academia. Somebody said, have you read this book? Have you read that book? No, I've read very few books. Most of what I read have been research papers that have been published by scientists. Scientists don't read books. They read research papers. I used to have a fantastic library. Over the years, unfortunately, parts of it have been lost, but I've managed to hold on to all my reference books. And so I still go through literal books. I don't get all my information off the computer. So, people have to do the research. Don't take my word for it. I'm glad I got questions. Don't take my word for it. Do the research yourself, because once you do that, Now the information becomes yours. And once you learn it, you can teach others. Doesn't that make sense, Russell?
I always say to the audience, do the research themselves. Yeah, that's all I can do. Another statement, and I've seen a lot of videos about this. I've seen a lot of comments. We've not talked about it before. Trump is King Cyrus reborn. He is an instrument of God. Any who stand against him will fail. Those who truly love God can see the truth in this and will be blessed. Amen. A nice little prayer in there.
It would seem that way because of Trump's defense of Israel. Let's look at the things that happened just prior to. Well, first of all, we've had an illegal president for 8 years that has promoted Islam. You know, he's supposed to be a Christian, but he's promoted Islam without a doubt. And even though he's bombed Islamic countries, hey, you had to cause a refugee problem to get those people out of those countries to invade the Christian countries. That's a reverse holy war that's going on. But as far as Trump being Cyrus, or like a Cyrus, Cyrus was used to free the Jews from Babylonian enslavement. Was Cyrus the Great, who dried up the water of the Euphrates and walked his army and captured Babylon without a fight. He caught them all drunk during a drunken orgy, and before they knew it, the city had fell. It was the same night that Daniel translated the words "Mene, mene, perzin, tinkle." I believe that it is the order of those words, which means your kingdom has been taken from you and divided between the Medes and Persians. And that happened that same very night. Trump seems to have, just during Christmas, or right around the same time as Christmas, just the end of the year, the UN had a vote which excluded Israel, and it was a vote on the future of Palestine in creating a second state, something that Israel has objected to for quite some time. And one would have expected the United States to veto the vote, and when they didn't, Israel looked at the whole vote as an act of war. Think about that. They actually looked at this UN vote as an act of war. Since then, interestingly enough, Israel has been in talks with the Vatican, the Holy See, to give control of the holy city of Jerusalem to the Vatican. And I never did find the outcome, kind of got lost in other things, but the meeting that was being held in France to determine the future here of Israel was going to give control of the holy city back to the Palestinians and the Nation of Islam. So, wait a minute. There's a lot of conflict going on, and now we've got a president that's standing up for Israel. And I heard something that was, it's one of those things that you can't vet. It was a statement that was made, one of these people that get information from inside sources, and this has to do with Nasara and the rollout of the new world currency, is that Trump was, who I kind of figured this, but Trump is backed by the military. And General Joe Dunford wanted Trump to sign the release for the release of the new currency, the world currency, and Trump wouldn't do it based on the wording in the agreement. He was protecting Israel in this agreement because Israel wouldn't have any protection. And because he wouldn't sign it, now there's talk that they're going to get rid of Trump because they needed to sign this agreement to release this new world currency to do away with the debt system and enforce Nasara. For some reason, they have to end the debt system before and come out with this new currency before they can enforce Nasara. Nasara is, from what I understand, is the law that was passed back in the 90s, was it? Which forces all of Congress to abide by constitutional law. So once they enforce Nasara, there's a lot of people, especially career politicians that are either going to have to resign or they will be arrested. And so, because Trump is not supporting Nasara by rolling out this new currency, or by endorsing the rollout of this new currency, he's got to literally sign documents. They are now threatening him with either resigning or being arrested under Nasara. How true this is, I don't know. And I have a feeling that this is one of those false news things, which, a false report from the insider, similar to what they're saying about this Nibiru, which the show that we did with the five, was it last week, with the 5 different scriptures regarding this Nibiru event. I'm going to go back to what I said originally. I was not a believer in a 9th planet passing us by until I did more research into the prophecies, and didn't find just 1 or 2, but found really 6 prophecies, similar or recurring, that deal with an Nibiru type event. And in that same vein, we've got weather that's out of control. You can blame it on HAARP, you can blame it on chemtrails, but we've got a sun which is burning, which is really scorching. And we've got a Schumann resonance which has gone from theta into beta. So it's gone from a sleeping state into a fighting state. I'm talking about the vibration of the earth itself. Something has to be causing these things. We've got earthquakes going off, and since 1998, 99, earthquakes have increased over 500% and have been up that far for the last almost 20 years now. And they come in swarms. There's over 150, I believe it's over 150 active volcanoes around the world. And Mount Etna last week just blew its top. So it's coming back to life. Hey, what can I say? Stick your head in the sand. You don't want to take a look at what's going on with our own environment? Stick your head in the sand.
Comment from the audience: Trump is a Jesuit. God works through everyone. That's why the world is a stage. But for real, look it up. Trump attended the extremely Jesuit Fordham University for 2 years, just long enough for his apprenticeship, then left, exactly what a Jesuit would do. He has been mentored for this role for years. He will fulfill biblical prophecy for the Jesuits and bring in a Sunday law. Earth is flat. Nibiru would therefore just be a star in the dome. The dome collapsing or some other cataclysm will happen to fulfill Wormwood in Revelation of the Bible. Aliens are not real. Fallen angels are the aliens.
Okay, well, yeah, I'll agree with the last part. Fallen angels are the aliens. Alien is someone who is not naturally from this planet. Extraterrestrial means someone who is not from Earth. I don't see the difference. Fallen angel, where'd they fall from? Mount Everest? They fell from Valhalla somewhere? Shangri-La? Where did they fall from? Again, you got to go interdimensional. These are interdimensional beings made up of energy, and they can assume certain, they're shapeshifters. They can shapeshift their energy. Kind of like lightning bolts along. But you also have ball lightning too. It's like Play-Doh almost, or like clay. They can shapeshift into any form that they chose. But they can't fully materialize. That's the interesting thing. They have force, but they can't fully materialize. Hence we have stories of shadow figures. I heard a tremendous story about 2 shadow figures attacking this one woman, brilliant woman. She was Jewish, and she was actually the great-great-grandniece of Tsar Nicholas of Russia. And it's part of the reason why she was under attack. But as I said, she was Jewish, and she was under attack by these 2 shadow figures that were fighting her. And in her desperation, she yelled out, "Jesus Christ, leave me alone!" And they vanished. They left her alone. She commanded it in the name of Christ. So, yeah, we're dealing with these entities. And I'm not even going to go to the flat Earth dome statement. Come on, if you believe that, you're an Anunnaki worshiper. You're worshiping the king of the Anunnaki, and that's all I'm going to say about that. You're worshiping an alien race or life form. You're worshiping the fallen angels. You happy? Enjoy it. What was the first part of this question or the statement?
That Trump is a Jesuit and would fulfill biblical prophecy for the Jesuits and bring in a Sunday law.
Yeah, in the statement that came out about Trump not wanting to sign off on the SARA, the same person who brought this information said that Trump was being controlled by the Jewish mafia, by the Zionist mafia. So now wait a minute. We got two different stories here. We got the Zionist mafia controlling Trump, and we see evidence of Trump standing up for Israel. However, he did go to a Jesuit school. One of the most prestigious Jesuit schools is what was it? Washington. It's right in Virginia, just outside of Washington D.C. William and Mary College. I forget the name of the school, but it's a Jesuit. It's the most prestigious Jesuit school in the United States. Go look at their alumni roll, and you'll find that sultans, kings, presidents, government officials, people from all around the world have sent their children there to be educated. Does that make them all Jesuits? No. To become a Jesuit, you then have to go into the Jesuit order. And I had a friend that went to a Jesuit school, and he said, but he wasn't a Jesuit. But he was educated in a Jesuit college, close to where we are right now in Pennsylvania, Scranton. There's a wonderful Jesuit college there. I've never been there. I don't know if I'd send my kids there, but they've got some excellent curriculums there, and they turn out some great students. Are they Jesuits? No. It's a Jesuit-funded college. Do they teach Jesuit agenda? I'm sure they do. If you wanted to take theology in a Jesuit college, you're going to get the Jesuit slant or a Catholic slant on that information. Is Trump a Jesuit? No. Trump's a businessman. He's been a businessman his whole life. He started out in the military, in a military academy because he was such a rotten kid. His father sent him to a military school. So, and that's where he learned to really compete. He went to Fordham University, very popular New York City college. Does that make him a Jesuit? Well, if it does in your mind, great. But it seems like he's standing up for the Zionists for some reason. Just an observation. It's one of the things that I cannot directly put my finger on who Trump is actually working for. But the Jesuits, the Zionists, I think they're both trying to influence Trump. I think Trump may be working for America. He may be working for himself in the long run, because when he leaves his office, should he get that far, he will have made America the way that he wanted to make it, not the way that everybody else wanted it. Is he the Cyrus? I don't know. He could be. Cyrus was a king. So, and he is standing up for the Jews. Is he releasing them from something? I don't know. You have to keep in mind the Zionists, or Israel, was built by the Rothschild family. And if you don't believe that statement, again, do the research. You can start right back at the Zionist First Congress in Basel, Switzerland in 1897. So start doing the research on your own, or go research the Rothschild family. As great-great-grandma Rothschild said, if my sons didn't want war, there would be no war. Probably the most evil people on the face of the planet. But anyway, who am I to judge? Next question. I think I got that one.
Someone chimes in here. Don't believe for one moment that the elite secret society and Lucifer aren't behind Donald Trump. Trump was selected by these groups, not elected. Globalist, secret societies, and Lucifer control this planet via Cain's bloodline. Put your trust in the Most High, not a man.
I'm not even going to argue with that one. Jesus himself said the whole world is in the power of the wicked, lies in the power of the wicked one. When we go back to the temptations of Christ, where he was told different things by Satan to do, Well, the last thing was, if you bow down to me and give me one act of worship, I will give you all the kingdoms of the world. And what was Jesus' reply? Go away, Satan. It is Yahweh alone who you must worship. Now, Jesus never debated with Satan whether he had the power or control over the kingdoms of the world. He never debated that. And so, yes, for Trump to become president, somebody's got to be controlling him. Somebody is endorsing him. He's put there to do a job. Exactly what that job is, I don't know, but it seems to be throwing a wrench into the globalist works. This much I can tell you. We know that the previous administrations, as I said earlier, were controlled by the Catholic Church, by the Vatican. That does not seem to be the case anymore. So who does that leave left?
Peter Kling, have you ever studied Latter-day Saint theology?
No, as a matter of fact, I haven't. That's actually one of those things that I've thought about, and it's like, well, it would take years to get into it. We don't have years to understand and comprehend. All of us don't have years. We're worried if the biblical prophecies, which have come to pass, we've only got a few left that need to be fulfilled, a few major ones left. Among those is the end of religion. But before that, a one kingdom has to arise, an eighth king, as it's stated in Revelation, the 17th chapter. And it says that this king exists for 1 hour. Now, how much can a government get done in 1 hour? See, I'm wondering if this eighth king may not be more in line with what is happening with Nasera and the rollout of a one world currency. We'll have to pay attention to this. An economic reset could certainly bring in an eighth king. So pay attention, folks. This could happen quickly. Maybe that's one of the reasons why Trump doesn't want to sign off on the release of this change of currency. Like I said, I don't know this to be fact. As far as I'm concerned, it's only hearsay. Watch what is going on. I mean, Trump doesn't even have his whole cabinet put together yet. How could they expect him to sign off on some agreement and change the whole paradigm instantly? So I would imagine look for a person-to-person meeting with Putin, and look for a person-to-person meeting with President Xi of China, and then expect a change in currency. Those three men could pull it off. Trump, Putin, and President Xi of China could actually change the paradigm of this planet by bringing out by having a currency reset, getting rid of the dollar, the debt system, and rolling out a currency backed by Dragon family gold. So hold on tight. If you have any extra money, invest in silver. If you're in Canada, Canadian Maple Leafs. If you're in America, Silver Eagles. They're about $20 a piece, printed by or minted by the Treasury Department of, I'm sure, each country. I'm not sure who makes Canada's Maple Leafs, but Silver Maple Leafs.
The Canadian Mint.
Invest in that. Canadian Mint. There you go. So you can deal directly with the mint, or you can deal with a broker, but you should be able, on the current trading prices, you should be able to pick them up between $20 and $22 a piece right now, based on where silver is trading at. Silver is expected to go to, increase 15 times. So it's not a bad investment. I have not seen it go down over the past 5 years below 14. And when it was down at 14, I was a strong buyer of silver and recommended that other people did it too. But that's up to you.
Sweet. I was a strong buyer of silver at 40.
I waited. I actually told somebody, this gal had some silver coins that her father collected. He had passed away, and she was kind of hard, down on her luck here. And I said, hold on to these, and these. Get rid of all the rest. And she did. She got $33 an ounce, and silver coins are only 90% pure, so she did all right on that deal. Got her out of a bind, and she still has the majority of what her dad left her, so that's good. We live in trials sometimes, and whether you agree with me or not, do the research for yourself. If you want a quick tutorial to the understanding everything, based on 30 years of research, scientific and biblical research. Letters to Earth, the future is yours. You can find it at Barnes & Noble, Amazon.com. You can have your local bookstore order it, or you can go to my webpage, www.peterkling.com. Make a donation, and I'll send you a PDF copy of Letters to Earth. From what I understand, sales are going excellently. My publisher told me yesterday, well, we can't believe it. So a lot of people are seeing the earth changes that are going on, and they're looking for real answers. We're facing the judgment time of this satanic system of evil. And we're not talking about 10, 20, 30 years out. This planet can't hold up under that stress anymore. Society can't handle the stress. Look at what has happened here in the United States. We have a country divided that seems to be on the verge of civil war because they didn't get the president that they wanted in office. Oh, what a shame. If you can't live through an election, how are you going to live through a more turbulent time period? Now is the time to prepare. And it's more important to prepare spiritually because, after all, we are not physical beings. We just live in a physical vessel. We are spiritual beings inside that physical vessel. We are conscious energy forms at the soul level. The soul leaves the body dies. The soul doesn't die. The soul, as it says in Scripture right in Genesis 9:5, the soul goes back to the Creator, goes back to Source. I shall ask back the soul from every living creature. From man himself I shall ask back his soul. That's an energy form. It's a conscious energy form. So be prepared. We're going to see a lot of death and destruction. But we don't have to be a victim of it. In Letters to Earth, the future is yours, explains how we got where we came from, how we got to this situation that we're in now, and what our future is. And we really do have a fantastic future. We got to get past the paradigm change. We got to get past this judgment. Once we do, nobody ever talks about this anymore. Allegedly, we're taking a 2,000 trip year through the photon belt. Photons are known to heal DNA. Now, we're missing part of it, but we never get past the Armageddon portion of the Bible in order to get, we never get past chapter 19. But we go to chapter 20 and 21, and fantastic things happen. They really do. People say, oh, no, it's all a myth. Well, believe whatever you want, but hey, this world is failing, and we can see that plainly. It's failing environmentally. It's failing politically. It's failing religiously. And it's failing in people's health. People's health, their families, everything is being directly affected by this system of evil in which we live. And yeah, we got aliens, fallen angels, extraterrestrials, whatever you want to call them. They're interdimensional life forms which make up the satanic rebellion, and according to the numbers given, there's about 100 million of them. Maybe a little bit more. So and they're all here. They've all joined the party. Oh, we don't see them. Have you seen more reports of UFOs? I have. In the past several months, every day I'm seeing reports of UFOs. Somebody's posting orbs here or flying machines there. I also believe that they're using Project Bluebeam a lot, too, because we're seeing floating cities. So we live in remarkable times. Read Letters to Earth. The future is yours. Love and blessings to all. Thank you for having me on, Russell.
To the audience, post your questions in the comment section below, and we may get to the question in one of the future programs.
Yeah, and I don't mind criticism, because people will criticize things that they don't understand. And so if once you understand it, maybe you look at it a little differently. Here's an interesting thing, and I'll end with this. When I was a little kid, 4, 5, 6, we lived in just outside of New York City in New Jersey, urban New Jersey. And we used to go to, it was the old boulevard where all the stores and shops were. But to get there, we had to walk past this one block, and it was really broken down housing. There were apartment buildings, and black people lived there. And unfortunately, my mother's sister, when she would take me down with her to go shopping for whatever, she would refer to them as the boogeyman. And so that would scare me. But as I got older, I had friends that were all different color. Black, yellow, white. The nationality didn't bother me. I didn't let those prejudices that fear that was installed in me at that early age direct my life. I learned who people were. I've traveled all around the world. I've met people from all different countries, of all different races and nationalities. And I can honestly say, for the vast majority of those people, I like them. They're fine people. They're just like me and you. And if we stop and get to know them, maybe those prejudices will fade away. And maybe we can start to follow the greatest commandment. Love Yahweh your God with your whole heart, soul, and mind, and love your neighbor as you do yourself. And again, I'll say love and blessings to all. Have a fantastic week.